Hi, everyone. This is David Cohen, and I'm here with my amazing co-host,
Brad Feld.
Hey, Brad. And this is the Give First podcast. In the startup world, Give First means simply trying to help anyone, especially entrepreneurs, without any expectation of getting anything back. So we'll be talking to mentors and founders about what Give First looks like in action and how it makes great entrepreneurship possible.
Here's what the lawyers make me say. Brad and I are having personal discussions, and these are our personal opinions that are represented here. They don't represent the opinion of Techstars or the Foundry Group or any other group. Our conversations are just for informational and learning purposes, including any mentions of securities or funds. Certain of our own funds may own these securities, but please know we're not giving any legal, business, investment, or tax advice, and anything on the podcast is not intended to be used by any investor to make investment decisions. Welcome to the Give First podcast. I'm your host, David Cohen. We're really excited to have a great guest joining us today to talk Give First. We have Keisha Cash. Keisha is a founder and general partner over at the Impact America Fund. She was last year named one of Fast Company's 100 most creative people in business. She's a venture capitalist that focuses on impact investing. Worked previously at Merrill Lynch, as well as London-based firm Bridges Ventures, and started Impact America Fund. What was it, 2013, Keisha?
Yeah, I started the first fundraising in 2013, but officially launched Fund 1 in 2014.
Tell us a little bit about that fund.
Sure. So Impact America Fund 1 was focused pretty broadly. Our thesis for Impact America is that there are opportunities to invest in software and tech-enabled companies that can have a positive benefit on underserved communities in America. So our thesis for Fund 1, again, pretty broad. We were looking at opportunities in education, health and well-being, and income creation, and was able to deploy our capital across those areas with a concentration really in this bucket of income creation, which informed the thesis for Impact America Fund 2, which now we're doubling down on that focus and really looking for tech-enabled opportunities to create what we're calling economic agency for underserved Americans.
Awesome. And we have a few portfolio companies in common, so it's been really great to have your help with those companies and focus in that area. I was talking to Rod Robinson, who's actually one of the CEOs we have in common over at Connexus in preparation for this. And he was talking to me about sort of watching you and your career, first at Serious Change, I guess, and talked about back then sort of almost being like a first-time entrepreneur, raising that first fund, and that he really wanted to deliver on the investment and the trust that you had placed in him, so that you could, sort of continue to help founders. So maybe talk a little bit about that transition from Serious Change over to Impact America.
Yeah, I had the pleasure and the great fortune of working with Josh Melman, who for the last close to probably a decade has been the face of Serious Change. And Serious Change is a family office structure, a single LP. The principal is a female, which we're thrilled about. She remains anonymous, but one of our world's billionaires that has made a decision over a decade ago to be extremely catalytic with her capital to invest in mission-driven companies around the world. So when I met Josh Melman, has been working with the fund, and Josh himself has been a catalytic investor over the last 30 years, but was really, he had been working with the family office to mobilize dollars into mission-driven for-profit companies globally. So I had the opportunity to meet Josh Melman at Columbia Business School, and his family endowed the Melman School of Public Health at Columbia, and started to work with him actually during my last semester at Columbia Business School. And this was in 2010, with the goal of learning. I, volunteered. I'd never met an angel investor, and one particularly that was interested in mission-driven companies. And when I met Josh, and Josh is a 60-year-old at the time, Jewish white man, and we had this meeting, and he expressed sincere interest into moving more dollars into mission-driven entrepreneurs of color based in the U.S. So we connected in many ways around that mission, and I started to work with him. I volunteered my last semester to identify companies that would fit the thesis of Serious Change, but more specifically, we were looking for entrepreneurs of color. And we made a number of investments together over what started out as a semester of volunteering, ended up being a 3-year initiative within the Serious Change to identify more of these companies. Rod happened to be my last year working directly with the family office. Rod was one of the investments that Josh and I made together. Connexus was one of those investments, investing into Rod, that turned on the light bulb for me in regards to, this thesis of there are tech solutions out there that can address, inequities within systems. In the case of Connexus, really looking at diversity in small businesses and the relationship with supply chains at large corporations is obviously very exciting. And so that, early investment in Rod at Connexus and a few other entrepreneurs that were using technology solutions became the thesis for Impact America Fund One. And, I was thankful to get some initial support, continuous support actually, by Josh Melman and Serious Change. So that family office created space for me to learn, to grow my network, and to refine my thesis for Impact America Fund.
So it sounds a bit like Josh was somewhat of a mentor, but like the best mentor relationships, they become two-way. And I'm going to guess he's learned a lot from you over the years as well. Rod said it's super clear to him that Josh, who he viewed as like a pioneer of impact investing, has probably passed on a lot of knowledge and expertise to you. So talk about a little bit about that relationship that you have with Josh, and maybe some things that you learned from him or that he's learned from you over the years.
Yeah, I call him the godfather of impact investing. So he's been at this for a very long time before the term was sexy, and we're happy. We're certainly happy that it's a mainstream term. But Josh and friends started this work over 30 years ago. He's one of the co-founders of the Social Venture Network, of Investor Circles. And it was really, Josh and his colleagues, including folks like Ben and Jerry's back in the day, saying, hey, there's a better way to build businesses. And there's, there are ways for us to move our money that are good for society. And so it's, I'm really blessed that I had the opportunity to meet Josh and work directly with someone, I learned to be one of the godfathers of impact investing, and building this ecosystem and being catalytic. When I first met Josh, I met people before I knew Josh, met people that knew Josh, and they're like, Josh is this radical, in the best of ways, angel investors, he'll sit down with someone, he'll hear their idea, he'll write them a check, right? What I learned about Josh, there's a lot of thought process in writing that check, but he's really, really good at tapping into one's intentions, right? And we don't always get it right, but I would say Josh has a gift for understanding, what the intentionality is around a founder's mission or business idea. And what I learned through him, and I continue to learn that intentionality is extremely important in traditional business, but even I would say more so in impact investing. And so coming back to the founder's intentionality around their why, their reasoning for wanting to wake up every day to do this is truly important. And that's one thing that, among many things that Josh taught me, he'd ask me after meetings, do you think this person's a good person? Which is a loaded statement for him, because there are nuances to what we mean by a quote unquote good person. But he's just very good with people and understanding human nature. He's also extremely he's a network within sort of networking. He knows everyone across different industries. And he taught me the importance of, showing up at an event. Don't talk to people you already know. You're here to network, and to do that in different spaces. Josh and I, when I worked in New York and lived in New York and worked with them in New York, we take trips, to Harlem to visit an entrepreneur in Harlem, or we go downtown. And it was just amazing to watch him be able to adapt to different environments, and to really be present in those environments, to understand what was happening from a cultural standpoint. And so I just learned a lot from Josh about people and being present and truly sort of understanding the atmosphere that we're in. And I think, what he's learned from me, you probably have to ask him about that. But he continues to be a great friend and mentor, and I, very honored to have him in my life as a mentor and as a guide through this process.
Yeah, and maybe I will be able to ask him someday. I hope so. But it sounded like he was, a big proponent or fan of you, launching off on your own with your next fund and the activity you're doing now. Why would he support that? He's losing somebody that, he's helped Todd, and it sounded like he was a big fan of, yeah, go out and do it on your own.
Yeah, that's a great question. When we met in 2010, I applied to Columbia Business School with this idea. Prior to Columbia Business School, I worked sort of after post Wall Street, and prior to pre Columbia Business School, I worked with very small lifestyle types of businesses in Los Angeles, and the majority of those companies were led by entrepreneurs of color, and that's where I discovered this amazing talent that was disconnected from resources, and applied to Columbia Business School with this idea of supporting, helping to build this ecosystem and getting more resources to diverse entrepreneurs, right? And this is, 2008 when I applied to Columbia, when I attended Columbia Business School. And so meeting Josh after my experience at Bridges Ventures in London, and meeting someone like Josh who was on the same page in regards to deploying capital. When I met him, I told him, I applied to business school with this idea. I worked at Bridges Ventures. Like I really, at some point, I think my business school essay said I wanted to raise, I don't know why it was, but I wanted to raise $3 million to invest in these early stage companies. And so when I met Josh, he's like, look, you don't have a track record. It's going to be really difficult for you to actually raise a fund. At this point, work with me. We have capital. The fund has capital. I have capital. We can do deals. Go and find those deals. We'll build it and they'll come. And so the good thing about Josh Mellman is he takes action. He's catalytic. He takes action. He spent years trying to figure this out with me. We met and he understood my purpose and intentionality, and we got to work. And so what started out as a, hey, come work with me for a year to get, to identify some investments, to do some deals, turned into a 3-year partnership under Serious Change. And that, we were able to use that. It got, we got to the point where I said, hey, I think I'm ready to create this independent fund. And he and Serious Change supported that. So from our initial meeting, there was intent that I would at some point spin out or spin off and raise an independent fund. And he held true to that, to our handshake agreement. And I'm thankful for that.
I mean, that's to me a classic sort of example of give first, like knowing that, that in a way, right, they were going to train you up and then lose you, but that would also in another way, they would get back from it because you'd be carrying some of that business philosophy, out into the world and maybe even improving it a little bit. I want to switch gears because I don't want to give Josh too big of a head. So I want to talk about some of the entrepreneurs and what they tell me about you. So go back to Rod first. He told me a couple stories about, just the mentorship and guidance you've provided along the way, and including a few cases where, you as an existing investor in the company, were sort of reacting to a negotiation that maybe wasn't necessarily as favorable for you as an investor, but you felt was the right thing for the business. So I don't know if you remember any of those, but Rod really remembers that and viewed it as very much sort of give first from you to kind of do the right thing by the company, as opposed to always just by, you in particular.
Yeah, I don't remember that specific case, but I believe that to be true, and that we've, it's tough, and it's a fine line as an investor that now has multiple limited partners, and my job as an investor with limited partners is to get a good financial return for our LPs. That being said, our LPs are also investing in this fund because of our mission, and in addition to the mission of our companies to have a positive impact on underserved Americans, there's also a mission for our founders to make sure that they are navigating this space in a way that's fair and just and will get a positive impact, for them on the other side. So there have been times where, if it's clear to me that our founders are making decisions or considering decisions that or opportunities that may not be, in 100% sort of, it's never 100%, but not in kind of full alignment with their own vision and what they're trying to achieve. And so it's one thing to compromise, it's another thing to make a decision based on, your lack of awareness or understanding of what it is that you're deciding on. And that's, for me, that's the fine line. And so there have been cases, Rod's probably mentioning a case and other cases where I've told our founders or folks in our pipeline, okay, I'm taking off my VC hat for a moment to just make sure you're aware of X, Y, and Z. And then, once I know that you're aware of it, then it's up to you to negotiate and compromise per that awareness. So it's a tough, it's a tough line that we have to walk, but it's one that is really important for us and the types of founders we're investing in addition to the majority of our portfolio being, women and people of color. These are founders that are also trying to create opportunities for folks that are, a broader set of individuals beyond their own wealth creation. And so because of that we are, extremely particular to make sure we're doing, the best that we can to ensure that, those outcomes are as great as they can be.
Yeah, I like what you said about, it's compromise, right? Because my guess, I don't know what Rod was referring to either, but, Techstars came along at some point with maybe not, the economic deal that everybody was hoping when we invested. And maybe Rod viewed it as we want to add, this new investor and this new network. And I don't know, maybe had better opportunities, but I think you have to balance all that with, what are the economics of the deal versus, what is the business need and what does the entrepreneur think is going to help? So we all as VCs do that every day, right? To try to optimize the outcome rather than just the economics of the, deal that's in front of us. So I can identify.
Yeah. And I doubt Rod was speaking at all about Techstars. You all have been fantastic. We were happy when you came along and led the A.
Well, great. Well, checks in the mail on that one. Thanks for that comment. I also talked to Lindsay over at Schoolzilla, which you've been involved with over the years, and she says you've been really given her a lot of confidence over the years, and knows that they would be nowhere near as far along as they would be. But she cited in terms of Give First, she said, you'll even show up at their lunch and learns, right? Like just to see if you can help out their employees. And I know that's not activity that leads to another investment or necessarily directly impacts the company, but Lindsay sure seemed very appreciative of all the things that you do that go out of your way to kind of give first around Schoolzilla.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're a small firm, and so from a sort of portfolio management capacity, we are as active, I think, as a 5-6 person team can be. And for a while, there was like 2 of us. I think we're super active. I have, everyone's on speed text, and we'll return each other's calls within 24 hours. If not, then we're worried about the other. So it's true, true partnerships. And I would say our gift at Impact America Fund, we don't have the 100-person team to provide, kind of all facets of portfolio management in regards to marketing, biz dev, et cetera. But what we can provide because of our relationships with our founders is just, honesty and transparency from a personal growth standpoint, I think is what we're really good at. I'm certainly open to that. I think one of the greatest rewards from this work is learning and growing with our founders. And, we're investing in amazing people that are, not only business savvy, but really conscious of what's happening out in the world. And so, for me, it's constant learning from them. And because we have that level of transparency in the relationship, it allows us to be pretty honest and upfront about personal development work that needs to be done, which is a huge part of obviously growing a business. And I'm thankful they allow me to get in there. I can be, pretty direct. I've learned how to manage that, but it's with love and intentionality around supporting our founders' growth. So I do feel like we only invest in founders we believe we can have that sort of relationship with, because it truly is part of our value add. And we're thankful that, our founders trust us enough to let us get behind the curtain and to see what's really going on.
And you get free lunch too, right? So it's not so bad. You get something back.
Exactly.
Lindsay also told me you spent a lot of time over at Columbia, just investing in students and helping out there. Is that true?
Yeah, I'm so thankful for my experience at Columbia. I was able to really take advantage of the Social Entrepreneurship Center there, which is how I landed my gig at Bridges Ventures in London for the summer, and then obviously coming back from that and meeting Josh Melman at Columbia, and just a great group of people in general. Some of my greatest mentors were adjunct professors who were, one former colleague or a partner who was at Warburg Pincus taught a class that I absolutely loved and enjoyed. one of my LPs now. He works directly on sort of the right hand of the president of Columbia University. He's a former Goldman Sachs guy. And so just meeting really incredible people. I actually met Ben Horowitz while at Columbia presenting to during a board presentation. And Ben has been fantastic as a supporter, as well as Andreessen Horowitz. So yeah, a lot of good things have come out of my time at Columbia and the relationships that I built. So I try to give back, and I know that there are a lot of students that are interested in entrepreneurship and venture capital, and so to the extent that I can show up and speak to a class or take a 30-minute call, then I try my best to do that.
I always like to say, Give First is not, you show up at Columbia and you immediately get something back, right? It's unexpected what you get back. And, you're sort of sensing you've gotten a lot from that connection. And so you want to keep giving into that system. And, more things will come to you in the future as a result of that, I'm sure. But, we do it without any specific idea in mind of what we're going to get back from doing it. So I'm sure they all appreciate that at Columbia.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And we've had the opportunity to show up at different business schools. Stanford Business School, actually, a good friend, Heidi Patel, and she's a general partner at Rethink Impact. She teaches an adjunct course at Stanford Business School, and in 2014, when we closed our first fund, they wrote a case study on the journey, and Heidi was actually at a family office that invested in Fund One prior to her transition. So you're absolutely right. These connections and networks are, organically, build upon themselves. And she actually, for her course, wrote a case study on Impact America Fund that's taught each year. And so each year I have this wonderful opportunity to sit in the back of a Stanford Business School class and listen to, a group of 40 some odd students assess and analyze Impact America Fund. And the treat for me, obviously engaging with the students, but to hear their feedback. And I'm always really pleasantly surprised. They take a vote on the end in regards to whether or not Impact America Fund should stay independent and continue to raise independent funds, or possibly consider, some offers that have kind of been put out there around joining forces with larger institutions. And hands down, because of the mission of our fund, the class overwhelmingly votes each year for us to remain independent. And there's the joke around, hey, it costs money to be out here as a firm. How many of you all are going to volunteer and work with us? But what comes out of that, to your point, David, is we always have, wonderful students who, are well connected and smart and savvy in their own ways that follow up with us. Again, no expectation. But we've been able to build some pretty dynamic relationships from that activity as well.
That's awesome. I always love anytime I can get in front of students, because I find that almost the younger they are, the better questions they ask, and right, they're not afraid to ask the questions and think about it. But that's, you tease us a little bit there with maybe some bigger opportunities, but I think it's awesome that you want to stay independent. I want to dive into some rapid fire and ask you a few questions to get you to just give me your quick rapid fire answers on them. But before I do that, anytime I talk to someone who identifies as an impact investor, I like to throw out some data that we have here at Techstars, and you'll probably identify with this, I hope. We now have the Techstars Impact Accelerator down in Texas. We work with the Nature Conservancy. We have a farm to fork program. So we are doing more and more in quote unquote the space. But as we did that, we really looked at the definitions of what we were looking for in those programs, and found that 15 to 20% of what we've been doing all along falls pretty cleanly into this category of what people are interested in impact. And we pulled that cohort out. You may know we're investors, Keisha, in about 2,000 companies. So, we're talking, a couple hundred companies, maybe 300 companies that would meet this impact definition. And as a cohort, they were performing better than the total cohort of all companies. So impact is not just about that second bottom line. It's also about that first bottom line. I'm sure you would agree.
That's true.
All right, rapid fire. Quick answers if you have them. What's your favorite city? Someplace everybody should visit?
New York City.
Awesome. That's a popular one. I think everybody wants to go there if they haven't been there. I know why.
Well, I'm taking a red eye there tonight, so it's top of mind.
All right. Well, you'll be nice and rested tomorrow, I'm sure. Um, how about a great book that you've read recently that you want people to know about?
Oh, I'm almost finished with it, but it's called The Wisdom of Finance.
Any charities that you'd urge people to get involved with or take a look at that you've come across?
Yeah, the Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, SCO. So they are an organization, I would say I participated in this organization while in college and was placed in my Wall Street position. And I think they've single-handedly are responsible for diversifying Wall Street. And so I encourage everyone to continue to support SCO.
That's awesome. As a thank you to being on the show, we're going to do a donation to that as well. We'll also do one to the Techstars Foundation, which is focused on diversity and inclusion in tech, in your name, if that's okay.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. That's wonderful.
We appreciate you coming on the show. Last one. If you could have dinner with anyone, they don't have to be alive, who would it be?
Gosh.
It's more fun if they're alive, but imagine you could do it at any point in history is what I mean by that.
I mean, I would, given the times that we're in right now, I want to go back and I'd have dinner. I'd be part of these conversations with some of our great civil rights leaders. Malcolm, Martin, some of the philosophers, kind of going back a little further, W.B. Du Bois. Like I really, I think we're in cycles. And so you can obviously read the books, but to be able to sit down and understand the philosophy and sort of the lessons learned from different eras in time, I think would be extremely helpful right now.
Would be cool. That's a whole dinner party. I'll give it to you. I was looking for one person, but you can have a party. That's cool. Keisha, thanks so much for taking the time to join us on Give First. Best of luck with Impact America. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Excellent. Thank you, David, for all that you do as well.
You can always learn more about what's going on here at Techstars by checking out techstars.com on the web, or find us at Techstars on Twitter or your favorite social.
And don't forget to give first.